Casting on Zoom.
Yay! Zoomy Zoom Zoom!
All righty, and let's see, we've got some participants are coming in. They've been waiting. They've been waiting early.
Welcome. Bienvenidos.
Yeah.
Oh.
Look at all you beautiful people.
How do we
Thanks for coming. I've got
There's lots of people. Oh my goodness.
Bailey, Chandra, Chelsea, David Tarleton. I know him. Guy Wiki.
Here we go. Guy Wiki's been here before, and Afra Williams.
Aaron. Ready?
Hi, Katie.
Jordan Capo.
Wow.
Awesome. Look at that. That's Catherine
Lori
Banks, who's
Hello,
in
Katie.
Wisconsin. She's in Madison.
Hi, Brian.
We love Katie Banks.
Yes. Toma. She's a student. Oh my
Yes.
goodness. There's so many wonderful people.
There really are. Tamara Kagan.
Bailey just won some award. Was it a Jeff? Was it a Jeff that you won? What did you win?
You can tell us on the chat. Oh, someone's chatting.
Oh yeah.
Diamond Gray says hello.
You were nominated.
Hi.
Congratulations
David
on your
Castle
nomination.
says, I was nominated. And
I
she
love you too. I love you. Thank you so much for coming. I hope everyone's doing good. You're getting by, at least, during these times.
And also, you guys, we're gonna we've got some questions prepped for Esteban, but please leave them a question in the Q&A. We can hopefully get to it live, okay? We want to hear from you. It's been a while. It's been a few weeks now since I've seen
It has. It's been 2 weeks, I think.
Maybe, really?
2 or 3.
I thought it was 3.
Because last week we had our new student seminar.
Yeah.
Hi, Tamara.
Awesome. All right. Well, it's 6:03 at Ann Arbor. Katie Banks lives in Ann Arbor, not Madison.
Oh, come on.
Thank you for letting me know, Katie. Sorry. I'm gonna start as people continue to come in, so we can get this party going. Welcome, everybody. Hello. I'm so glad you're here. My name is Rachel Patterson. I'm the director of Acting Studio Chicago. This is our 10th Jammy Jam hosted by the beautiful, talented, very funny Adria Dawn. Yes. And we are super duper duper delighted to have Esteban Andres Cruz join us for the Thriving Artist. I am personally very excited to watch tonight. I personally have been really stressed out just during this whole time, figuring out how to keep going in lots of different ways. So I seriously need to listen and get a little bit of inspiration on finding my juju again. So thank you so much for being here, and I'm delighted. I am going to now pass the virtual mic over to the lovely Miss Adria Dawn.
Thanks.
And here we go. Have a blast, you guys. Thank you. And FYI, all of you people too know that this recording of this webinar will be on the webinar page of our website by the end of the day tomorrow. So if you have a friend that you would like to experience what we're talking about, the recording will be available for anyone. All right, have a great time.
Awesome.
Here we go.
Here we go.
Here we go. Here's Adria.
All right. Thank you so much, Rachel, for that.
And here we go. And I'm making you the host. I just want to make sure.
Technology.
You've got it.
Are you the host? Can we tell? Yes, you are the host.
I'm feeling it.
Okay. All right. Take it away.
Okay, great. Thanks, Rach. As Rachel said, this is the 10th Jammy Jam I'm very excited to host. It is called The Thriving Artist During Quarantimes. Find your voice, define your vision, and manifest meaningful work. Tonight, multidisciplinary artist Esteban Andres Cruz is with us. As we know, we're all very excited to get this started. We are going to discuss what defines an artist. Esteban will talk about core values and share exercises and techniques to help you find your artistic voice and define your vision. They will also offer practical steps to manifesting your dreams. We got a lot to talk about, so let's meet our guest. All right, okay, so now I'm gonna try to show some pictures of Esteban while I'm doing this. I have my little helper here. Okay, so here we go. Esteban Andres Cruz is from Berwyn and the Cicero area. Hey, I'm from Oak Park, my neighbor friend. They are a 16th, can you do these? They are 16th Street Theater Associate Artists. They have a background in dance, having studied ballet and modern dance, as well as having choreographer experience. With music, they studied jazz and opera. Esteban has graced many theater stages across the US, here in Chicago at Steppenwolf, and many others in LA and New York as well. They have also many TV film credits, including most recently The Thin Line, Easy, and Chicago Fire. In 2018, Esteban was awarded the prestigious Theater Communications Group's Fox Actor Fellowship. You guys, this is huge. It's given to an actor of exceptional merit to help nurture their career. Another highlight to Esteban's career that I wanted to point out was they were nominated for a Drama Desk Award. We're seeing images from that now. Wow. For Outstanding Featured Actor in a Play for their performance in Stephen Adly Girgis's Halfway Bitches Go Straight to Heaven. That's incredible. And lastly, as an educator, Esteban has been an ensemble doctor in Chicago, LA, and San Diego. At the acting studio, they teach contemporary naturalism, viewpoints, master classes, and more. I love this picture. Thank you so much, Esteban, for joining. So we're very happy to have you. So, you know, with this pandemic and our world being what it is right now, it's been a time of self-reflection for many of us, including me. And all of us, I think, are asking ourselves, what am I doing? Where am I at? Where do I want to go? And I think we're really all taking note of what really matters to us, which I think links directly to knowing and understanding our core values. Esteban, can you talk about the importance of recognizing what our core values are and how we go about figuring that out?
Yeah, absolutely. But first, you know, I just want to say that with the backdrop of a global pandemic and in the wake of George Floyd and people standing up for social justice and for Black lives, that this is a lot of trauma that is inflicted on a culture, on a society, on the world. And so basically, however you're getting through this pandemic is the right way. There is no right way. None of us have lived through this before. And if you have, woo, go Spanish flu survivors. But this is unprecedented. And there's no greater shock to our ecosystem of self and spirit that we've ever seen in our lifetimes than this right now. So, you know, I'm no different. We're not. Rachel was saying earlier about how you know, these times have, sometimes you're down, sometimes you're up, sometimes, you know, if you're getting through this by sitting on the couch and eating bonbons and watching Netflix, do it. Yep. It's just survival. But I think for a lot of us who identify as artists, it has been, especially theater artists, it has been, especially dealing with isolation, has been a very difficult thing, because so much of what our craft is about is communion and about community and being in a room together with a bunch of people really close together. So it seems like this pandemic is directly targeting theater, and how dare you, coronavirus?
How dare you?
How dare you? So yeah, it seemed like it was made specifically to abolish theater. So as all the pieces have disintegrated and we're left with embers of what is to come and what is to be and what can we build, again, we're faced with this question, which I think happens for a lot of actors. And like even saying that you're an actor, I know a lot of actors don't even want to admit or take on the label of artist because it's so, we're trained to put those things off. And even when we get asked the question of if we're an actor, it's always like, well, I work at Applebee's or, whatever. We're afraid to take that on. Yeah. What is your job? What do you do? Well, have I seen you in anything?
Yeah. Was it a big role?
Yeah. All of those things. So we're already involved in a dynamic that isn't so, can sometimes not be so loving to our spirit and ourself. So right away, entering this world and this trauma, we got to remember to take care of ourselves, self-care, self-love. And I think just all of the things that you love, all of the people that love you, surround yourself with those things. And though we can't do it in person, communicate with those people who hold you accountable to the person that you are, who love and respect you and will lift you up. So I think that's really important. You'll start to get to know what your core identity is better by really focusing on those people that are beneficial to your life.
Yeah, like why do you gravitate towards those people versus others? And I do think, sitting with yourself, there is so many people alone. We are just kind of trying to keep the demons at bay and focus on the good. It is hard. We are all struggling.
Yeah, and listen, there's plenty to be angry about. There is plenty of injustice happening in the world, and we should not give that up. Thank you, Mama Marsha P. Johnson, who fought for our rights as queer people, a Black trans woman who led the way so that some dudes can enjoy their time on Fire Island in their new Speedos, with not taking in the effects that it might have on other people. We're seeing all kinds of ways that, I had like an emotional breakdown because I was watching right after the pandemic, before George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement, started to get much more press. There was a family of ducks that was crossing Cicero Avenue down on the south side by a gardening store I love to go to. And they were not very quick about it. They took their sweet little time, and the parents would go across 7 lanes. And the kids would be like, the baby ducks would be looking around like, yeah, I don't know where I'm going. And so it took forever. Yeah. But each time they crossed the lane, the person driving the car stopped and broke for these animals every time. Wow. And they got all the way across, all the way to the other side. And I burst into tears because I was like, wow, my faith in humanity has been restored because I was starting to lose it, And my whole MO is built on the principle that like everybody is essentially good and that people derive all of their motives out of love. And I was having a really hard time believing that. And then I saw that and it reinvigorated my spirit in that way. And then I realized they weren't ducks at all. Those were geese. Fuck geese. Geese are assholes.
Well, and I think that relates to like, our own individual process, that sometimes it's really slow and it takes a while to get there, but that we eventually will if we keep at our steady pace, at what our own individual pace should be.
Yeah. And with that too, and thank you for bringing up the individual, entering the pandemic, in the pandemic, and getting out of the pandemic, because we will get out of this. We have to recognize that it is a trauma, and we have to recognize that we are all living in it. Every single one of us is living within it in different degrees. And so as I entered the pandemic, right away, I was like, let me tend to my wounds, both physical and spiritual and emotional. And so right away, I was in the posture of care for myself, poised to care for others. Should they get sick, I need to be there for a friend who gets sick. But the idea of like triage and self-care is not just happening at hospitals and what do you call it? Those emergency rooms, but also in our spiritual selves, because we are all on a healing journey and at different places.
I agree. And so for me, like, it's interesting because I do believe, like, I'm sitting here and, projects have been postponed and everything's at the wayside seemingly for right now. And it makes me actually feel good to sit down with myself when I can and think about what really does matter to me. What do I want to stand for, and And it's really cool to like actually take time to do that when maybe I wasn't really reevaluating or thinking about that before. It's like now I kind of have to do that now, you know?
Yeah, and it's nice, you know, that the work is gone, right? Temporarily.
Yeah.
And hopefully when we come back to it, it's not going to be at all like it ever was before. It should be more equitable. It should serve and tell the stories with dignity of these people who have been left out of the conversation, who've not been invited to the table. And it's exciting because we're at this reforming of things, a reconstruction, if you will, or a renaissance is the word I'm really excited about, because I feel like we're on the brink of revolution at the moment. And so that usually is followed by a renaissance in art that I'm really excited about.
So how would you say, just shifting gears a little bit, how would you say, like we're thinking about work and we're on the verge of a renaissance, and things are kind of feeling like they're on the cusp. How do you feel like our dreams and our spirit kind of tie into all of this?
Oh, well, I'm so glad you asked that question.
Ask me.
And you know, I'm a firm believer that dreams are not dumb, because I feel like the trajectory and the movement that you have towards attaining those dreams, that movement and that journey, which is parallel to your healing journey, only brings us closer towards our true divinity and what we can achieve in our lifetime. So whatever the dream is, to work towards it, however silly, and maybe, you know, the dream is sometimes for some people just to have a dream and to be allowed to have a dream. Because I know for so many of us, for people of color, for women, for trans people, you know, we're told all the time, you know, that not only do our dreams not matter, but our lives don't matter. So it's really important, first of all, to have a dream, and then to set into motion ways to work towards it that are also in line with your healing and your grace.
I feel like all of us, well, many of us are having those dreams now of I mean, like, right, like my dreams have been crazy lately. Sometimes I don't remember anything, but sometimes I wake up and I'm like sweating. I'm like, oh my God, like we are dreaming that change, dreaming that renaissance, you know, of just like our own experience too. I think we have to really pay attention to those. I think they can dictate how things are going to change moving forward.
Well, absolutely. And, you know, with work being gone, also what has been removed is the hustle. And, you know, we so much in this field, and maybe it's not felt in visual arts, and I'm sure not, I've got plenty of friends in the music world and have been in the music world, and I think they have hustle too. And because their work isn't necessarily like you can paint in a studio alone and you're good. But for us, because our work is so collaborative, we spend so much time hustling and getting the next gig and going to these workshops and you know, casting director things and all that stuff and whatever, that we get so focused on that and lining up the next gig and the next gig and the next gig, that we don't ever have the time and the space to really nurture what the artist is, and even more important, what the human is and what those human needs are, and what that art serves as the spiritual reflection for that human in the art.
Okay, I love that. And we talked before about distinguishing where we always are on that hustle of and then the terrible things that get into our mind. I'm only as good as my last job. Can you talk about that, distinguishing that, how we have to distinguish between the job you book versus who you are?
Mira, the job, that's nothing. The only difference between me and Brad Pitt is millions and millions of dollars, and I'm much better looking. Pero, you know, I always feel bad for newer actors and younger artists that they oftentimes don't allow themselves the glory or the full enjoyment of what it is that they're doing, or their full divinity in it, because they think like, well, I'm not really, until I work at X theater? Do I really consider myself having arrived? Or any awards or things? And I know like that's easy for me to say because I've done it and been there and done that and stuff. But there was a thing that I used to do that was feeding into another form of oppression. And it was me feeding into a white savior narrative, where I would go into all these rooms and I would ascend and ascend and ascend and get into these more elite rooms. And each time I would have this stance of like, oh my God, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much for having me. Oh my God, I'm so honored to be here. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. To the point where I was like, almost apologizing for being there, acting as if I didn't deserve it. Yes. And it wasn't until like, until recently in the past like 5 years, certain things aligned. I met certain people. I started working with the lab in New York, and I was able to step into my own grace, to step into my own brilliance and recognize that, you know, no. I deserve to be here. I worked my ass off to get here. And I am a major contributor to the art that is being made here. Yeah. And that, you know, that took this is what a lot of people of color go through, is like you're told your whole life, you got to be twice as good as this guy and that girl, even just to get into the room, you know? And that sets up a really unhealthy paradigm for the artist, because you have to be perfect. And that is inhumane. And it also eliminates the idea that failure is acceptable when it is essential to making art. And it is essential to being human. And failure is how we grow. And failure is how we learn. And risk is the thing that makes art exciting.
I love that you said when you walked into your own grace, you know, we are taught to be humble, but I think we take that like so many steps further when it really just becomes about, it's not arrogance, it's confidence. I believe in what I do. I do not have to be desperate. And I think that's so important. Yeah, I love that. Well, I know that you and I both spent some years in LA. Can you share with everybody that story to kind of relate to like being nice and a good person?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I've learned a lot about why Chicago actors do so well on either coast, and each one is for different reasons. But in LA, it was a funny sitch because my friend had been out there for several years already, and he was doing things, you know, and trying to make it happen. They know trying. You do, or you're not. And there's no trying, but he was trying to make it happen. And so he was being very nice. And he told me, you know, sat down, we had coffee, and he was like, you know, Esther, you gotta really be nice to everybody when you're out here talking, because you never know who you're talking to. You don't know if the guy you're talking to at the bar could be like a producer or a writer or a showrunner or a director. Like so you gotta be nice to everyone. Yeah. And I was like, that's really good advice, I think, but actually, I think you should be nice to everyone, because otherwise you would be an asshole. I'm just saying, you know, my life is so much better when I'm nice to people, you know, that golden rule thing.
Yes, I think that's so fun. It's so true though. When you're nice to other people, you're nice to yourself. Kindness breeds kindness. Yeah.
You know what else was lovely about LA? I'll give you another quick little LA story. So I was always raised to be a proud Puerto Rican. And like my Mexican side was, my mother was Mexican, and we were always around a Puerto Rican family. So we got a lot of that. So I didn't have a lot of opportunity to express pride in my Mexican heritage until I moved to LA. Because LA would be all these people, you know, they always ask you, oh, well, how long have you been here? Yeah. And no matter what it was, whether it was a year, 3 or 5, they always be like, oh, I've been here 10. I've been here I've been 20 years, you know. So his name. And they asked that same question to some Mexicans in East LA and Boyle Heights. And they'd be like, you know what? Fuck you. We've been here since before your ass even knew this existed. And there was this beautiful kind of urban entitlement that the Mexicans had on that land that they had been indigenous to prior to the signing of the Treaty of Guadalupe. And so it was a great, rich history, Chicano pride, that I was so in love with, getting in touch with that.
That's awesome. Okay, so we've been sort of talking about the journey that you've been on and that people kind of go on. You talked to me earlier about like where do you think an artist starts out? Like the young artist, I want to be an actor. Where do you think that comes from versus where we can end, and how can we kind of evolve into the legacy we want to leave?
Yeah. Oh, Adria, I feel like you and I probably entered in the very same rooms into performance because I know you love to make people laugh, and I love to make people laugh, and it is a joy. And it's not always so altruistic. I love this. I love this. I love the tension. I love everybody. So yes, ego is important in what we do, but it's how you use it that determines how long you stay in the biz. Wow. And but I definitely got in to satisfy something that was part of my narcissistic self. And I can admit that because I'm not a narcissist, but I know that was definitely a part of it, was that desire for attention and validation and approval and everybody looking at me and thinking I'm pretty, like I loved all of that. Yes. And so you get that for a while. And I mean, this is like the same thing we have with expectations that we have in relationships. I thought I wanted this, and you grow through a relationship and you mature out of it and it grows. So you may get into this business for one reason, and then you find, oh, actually, I really love designing sets. And then you end up doing that, and that's really cool. Or you decide you want to direct. That happens a lot, or you evolve within the thing that you've chosen. And you're like, oh, so for me, I was not crazy about doing a lot of Latino theater because it felt like, to me, what I was being asked to do was, we just got to get in the word chancla and tortilla. And then when the people leave, all the white people in the audience, when they leave, they'll be on the drive home, they'll be like, oh my God, I saw all those Latinos on stage and I did not feel threatened at all. And I never felt good about that. So I stayed away from it. And was doing other things that were validating me. And then I found Stephen Girgis's work. And all of a sudden, here was a playwright that was speaking truth, that was speaking honestly. And when I did his work and stepped into one of his roles, it felt like I wasn't acting at all, but that I was just living some kind of truth on stage. And then each role that I did of his, it felt like it was written for me. So I ended up finding this cool niche of acting that wasn't acting at all, but it was just being on stage and living a truth. And I found that I could share that in a way that like kind of transcended the regular, like, did a show, give me flowers,
Yeah.
So I think it can, if you're open to it, and you keep pushing towards that thing that is going to feed you. And if you do those shows, like I did musicals, I would do musicals, and I wasn't feeling it. I did Oklahoma, was my first equity show, was Oklahoma. And the director yelled at me and he's like, just stand there and smile. And I was like, but he's got a gun. So I knew there was something that I had found in it that was like, triggering me to want to get to something more truthful, because I didn't feel like that was good and right for my soul. Singing and dancing, there's nothing wrong with it. I love musicals. I love going to musicals. Yeah. But for me, doing them wasn't the thing that was like feeding me in the same way that doing Stephen's work or Bruce Norris's work or Philip Dawkins' work, these playwrights were speaking, or Tennessee Williams, they just spoke truth to me in a different way.
So you're talking about your contemporary naturalism, taking the bullshit out of acting, right? That's where came from. That's wonderful. And you also private coach too, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I just, I found, I have to, give props to my mother, Alexandra Billings, who taught me at school at Steppenwolf and introduced me to viewpoints. And with a background in dance, what the viewpoints did was it just gave me a vocabulary for all the things that I understood organically as an actor, and gave me a way to communicate to other actors about how I approach my work physically and spiritually. And Alex was so good at reminding us of the spirit in what we do.
Yeah, that's awesome. And again, like going back to, I think a lot of us can just not listen to that voice inside us that says that might feel not what I really want, or we're scared because we so badly want that job. And I think really listen to that and go, wait a minute, this doesn't feel right. What does happen if I take that risk and try something else, change, move? You know what I mean? So I'm glad that you were listening to yourself, because look at how stuff is done. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're gonna find in your career that saying no gives you so much power and is liberating. When you can turn down things and say, no, this doesn't feel right, and this isn't, you know, I mean, even it doesn't matter if it's a high paying job, a union job or not. I remember when I was like a little thing, just a baby, starting out in Chicago, and I auditioned for some white company was doing a play about Frida Kahlo, and I was like, awesome, great. And I went in for Dali, and you know, and did the audition, and they afterwards they're like, so where are you from? And I was like, oh, I'm from the West Side. I was born in Berwyn. I grew up in Cicero. And they're like, no, but where are you from? What's your nationality? And I was like, I'm American. And they're like, come on now. But in the name like Esteban Andres Cruz, and they didn't say it like this. It's Esteban Andres Cruz. And I was like, okay, this audition is over. Thank you for your time. Goodbye. And I walked out of that audition because they don't deserve me. Listen, the audition you get, that's 2 minutes you get for free. The rest you gotta pay for, okay?
Yeah.
You get a little taste and that's it.
Yes.
But you don't get my soul.
All right, awesome. I'm gonna go to a question here.
All right.
From Shelly, and she says, because the pandemic has effectively slowed us all down, what can we do to reconcile feeling like we're running out of time, aging out of goals, missing out on opportunities, not being who we want to be in our careers by now?
Amen. What was her name?
Shelly.
Shelly. Thank you, honey. Thank you for saying that. That is you being vulnerable, and that is an act of bravery and courage. And so it sounds already like you've got some things going on that you're well equipped to deal with all of this. And we don't know what the future of theater is going to be, right? We don't know. I bet you it's going to be different. I bet it's not going to look at all. I hope it doesn't look at all like what it has been. And the great thing, the time that we're in right now, is that you might feel like you are stuck in a place in limbo with your career and where you were in your trajectory. But guess what? Everybody is. Every single person is. Think of it this way. We have been cryogenically frozen. The industry has been frozen in a way, and not completely frozen. Within that distilled time that we're in, it's like a petri dish, and we can add different elements, and we can, you know, take this idea that art is subjected to only a Eurocentric vision within this country, that we have a definitive audience and performer. We can look to other tropes from other cultures. We can look to Bomba en Plena in Puerto Rico and know that there isn't a distinct delineation between performer and audience, that there's call and response, that it's more communal, because it helps set up this paradigm that there are other ways for an American identity within the American theater, and that we can speak from an Afrocentric, a Caribbean-centric, a Latino-centric, a woman-centric perspective, and not just go back to the way that things were before. So Shelly, what I'd encourage you to do is use all of that creative power that you have and your imagination right now. And don't wait for the pandemic to be done to envision the future of theater. You are the future of theater.
Ooh, yes.
You create that. So make the theater work for you, not the other way around. Stanislavski said, love the art in yourself, not yourself in the art. You are the artist first. Theaters are going to die. There are many theaters that are going to be extinct after this is done. But the artists will endure because we are like roaches. And so be the artist. Yeah. You tell your story and you determine what happens in the future, Shelly. It's not you, girl.
I love that. Okay, Esteban, maybe you can help us with this. I know that like many people, many of us are trying to get family members to understand where we're coming from. And that's been hard for so many people. How do you think theater helps with that?
Uh, yeah, well, I mean, I've never found the void to be bigger than now that I feel for theater, because I get into, and I'm sure you have this, Adri, too, where you get into arguments with family members that you find out have very different opinions. Oh, yay, Shelley, you're welcome. But that, I get into these arguments and I try and use logic, I try and use reasoning, I try and use facts, and it just doesn't seem to work. And so I now more than ever feel what I'm missing in the power of the ephemeral arts, of the ambiguity of theater, being able to bring somebody into a room, and then just by the example of my existence, because here, sidebar to my sidebar, Facebook is toxic, and it gives us this veiled anonymity so that we can look at each other not as actual human beings with human dignity, but as likes and hearts and clicks and thumbs and all of that stuff. And now we're in a pandemic where we're isolated and we don't see each other face to face. When you look at somebody in the eyes and you have a relationship with them like that in physical proximity, in a theater, or in just walking down the street, it's a very different experience. It's very hard to deny someone's humanity when you're looking them in the eyes, or one eye, in my case. So I really do miss that part of theater. So again, to Shelley and all of you trying to find that way to make art happen now, use the power that you have in your experience of creating theater and telling stories to move your families with empathy and compassion, because that's what we're bankrupt in right now in this country. We're in the state that we're in right now with the police because we are morally, there's a good portion of the country that is morally and spiritually bankrupt.
Yeah.
So if we can appeal to them with compassion and with this expanding idea of what humanity is, because what the powers be have been successful in is dividing us. People who should otherwise be allies, we're too focused on little fights that we have within these communities of people who really should have each other's backs, and not focused on who the actual thugs are, like the police.
You're talking about like really manifesting our vision. Like how, so you're saying we got to manifest the vision, make our dreams happen, tell the stories we want to tell. So practical applications to doing that.
Yeah, so this is my trifecta, my manifesto.
Yes.
And it's a three-pronged act. So if you've got a pen and paper, please write this down because it will be valuable to you later. Number one, meditation. Dreams are not dumb. Meditation is so important, and it comes in many forms, right? And dreaming, when you are asleep and you have those visions, that is a part of your psyche in the makeup of what you are. And when you are awake during the day and your thoughts stray and you're like, that dream is also important. Dreams aren't dumb. Somebody else told you that, somebody who is trying to hurt your spirit. So they're not dumb. Dreams aren't dumb. Daydreams aren't dumb. They're really important. So run away from the idea that they're dumb and run in the opposite direction, as if they were the salvation, as if they were the thing that held the answers to your existence and who you truly are. So pursue those dreams in a way that you, every time you think about it and meditate, you get super articulate. Kill ambiguity with specificity and get really articulate. Like, I'm going to be, I want to be a series regular on a ABC show goes to, I want to be the romantic lead that comes in on a doctor procedural, but I'm the quirky one that's got a goofy eye and a disability. And so I then make everybody a better person because of my love and my humanity. Like, so you'll go from being general and vague to being really specific just in meditation. That's number one. Number two, write that shit down. And not on a computer, but with a pen. There's something that happens in the process, like with a horn player, when they take their air and they push it through this instrument and it comes out and reverberates through the world and sends these vibrations out. It's like their spirit is being sent out into the universe. And in a similar way, the pen out, it's almost like it's pouring your blood out onto the page. So you write down those same dreams and you get just as articulate and just as specific. And you can, the nice thing with writing it out is you can cross it out and be like, oh no, I'll be wearing a yellow hat. You know, you can get really specific about those things. And you'll say what network it's on, what platform, how many seasons it will be, you know, how many episodes, you know, all of those things. Who that, you know, you're going to work with Danny Trejo again, and Gina Rodriguez is going to be your sister, and, you know, get really specific about all of those things and what you're doing. Or, you know, I want to create a space for young trans girls to learn how to be, you know, in economics. I'm going to create that. Whatever your vision is, all dreams are valuable. And joy is very important and an act of protest in itself. It's radical.
I love joy.
Yeah, joy is so important because they want you to not have joy. And so if you have joy, you're winning. So number 2 is writing it down. Write that shit down. Number 3 is you have to speak it to the universe. And this is in a multiple pronged way as well. And now you speak it to the universe, to whatever it is that you believe in. If it's religious thing, fine. If not, just to the universe and to all of the energy, to the magnetic fields in the world. Again, that voice, that sound, it sends reverberations through the universe, and we are all made of stardust. So you're sending your voice out into the world to shake those particles of stardust to come back to you, to send the mission out and come back. And that same thing, you send out that voice to other people, to people you love, to people who hold you accountable, not in the way of like, you're that person who just talks about the things you're going to do and never does it. No, 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 no. You tell them, and they'll see it in your eyes. It's a different drive. It's like, this is what I'm doing. I want you to keep tabs with me. I want to check in with you about these things, like joining a writing group. It's how you hold yourself accountable.
Accountability group, yeah.
Those things. So that's it. You speak it to the universe, you speak it to other people, and you speak it to hear it yourself. Gotcha. To hear you say is like an affirmation. Now, if you do each of these 3 things on a regular basis, you go from 65% to 75% to 85% more likely to achieving your dreams. That is my manifesto on manifestation.
Yes, I love it. I'm so glad you brought up joy. I think joy is huge. You know, I remember when I was feeling like, oh, I've always created my own work, but I was always scared, like, especially when I was younger, like, oh, what if they don't like it? And what if, and what if, and what if? And then if you actually do, like, put it out there into the universe, it's like those negative thoughts leave your brain over time. It's not overnight, but it's a process, but you have to just keep putting it out there. I love that whole thing about joy and speaking it to yourself. There's something very profound about that.
Yeah, it's really important because we have so many things in this world and in this culture that tell us, women, for example, you shouldn't have opinions. You shouldn't have thoughts. You know, you need to be quiet and you need to not take up space. Yeah. So women are trained to say, I'm sorry a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Or if you're nice, that means that you're not strong, which is totally lame. You know what I mean?
So the things that we're all fighting on our healing journey to let go, to evolve as the human beings that we are. So, and it's difficult. It's not easy. And some things, you know, were so ingrained in us, depending on who was the person or what was the thing that instilled it in us, that we weren't good enough, or that we weren't, you know, that we weren't beautiful for some reason, but we are beautiful.
Oh my God. This goes right off of Diamond Gray's question of, you know, being beautiful, fitting in a certain mold. They say, do you believe in typecasting, like only playing certain roles because of how you look?
Oh my God, I'm so glad. That's an excellent question.
It is.
Yes, I believe in typecasting. You know why? Because if you are being typecast, that means you are working. And if you are working and you are working a certain type, that means you have a type to play against.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Well said. All right. Let's see what After Williams says. What sources and avenues would you suggest for being involved in acting now during this pandemic? And what are good places to get involved as an actor now since things aren't in their traditional forms?
Ooh, what was her name?
It's Afra.
Afra?
Afra.
Afra.
I don't
Hello,
have
Afra.
Let's put them on. Yes.
Yeah, no problem, Diamond. But Afra, again, like we said to Shelly earlier, now is the time where you have the advantage because you can build the ship. It is now in your court. And this is the problem. Actors, all of you out there listening right now, I want you to know that there is so much work. And this idea that there's just very little of it to go around, that you have to fight and you have to beg and plead and do all these things, that is somebody who has lived in scarcity their whole life, that has this idea that, like the president, that if I don't get mine now, today, and more of it, that they're gonna miss out on everything. But that's not true. Art, like love, is infinite, and it's there and it's existing. And so I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but it's there. And I would ask you to put that question onto yourself. And if you have stories that matter, your story matters. So what I would challenge you to do, even if you don't feel comfortable writing a play or writing a solo show or writing anything like that, just write down your experiences as they're happening right now during this pandemic, because it is rare. This experience that we're going through right now, this is history. We are living in history, where everything for the past however many years you've been alive up until March, it's been like, yeah, this is going on and going on and going on, and pretty much everything's the same. But now we're living in a history that no one in our lifetimes after us will, maybe, depending on how things go. But this is really important, what you're going through right now. So I would encourage you to write that. And then if you've got people, how many people you are quarantined with in your house, read it out loud for them. Yeah. Theater begins with people telling stories. And so if you've got people who will listen, you have theater. If you've got Zoom, apparently you must, because here we are. Yeah. You can set that up on a broader spectrum. And the great thing is you don't have to pay rent. You don't have to pay overhead. You don't have to pay anything but your regular Wi-Fi and stuff you got at your house. So you can do that and tell your friends, like, hey, I have feelings and I have stories and I want to share them, and then get all your friends together. And if you want to go to places, there are institutions that are waiting for somebody to have an idea of what to do. Some people don't know where to begin. Some people pivoted really quickly and were able to stream some things. Some people are waiting the answer. So if you are a creative and thoughtful and curious person, I'm just going to put it right back on you and say, you've got it.
Yes, I love that. And what I'm hearing from you, Esteban, is telling her to change her mindset in terms of, you know, we have to actually change our mindset. We are living in abundance. There are things we can connect to and create versus like, I'm scared, I don't know when I'm going to work again. It starts with that mindset. So thank you for that reminder. Okay, let me see. Oh yeah. So we are shifting and changing. You talked about a renaissance happening. The old way is not working now. How do you think we're all on a level playing field right now? How is that, and why do you think that?
Well, because we get to write the book now, you know? We get to go to these predominantly white theaters and say, hey, that wasn't working. It just wasn't working. And now we've got a way that we want to tell stories that benefits these people and communities. You know, it's like there are so many grants out there, so many different types of funding that happen. And at big theaters, they'll get a big fat chunk of money for their one diversity initiative, for their one show or the one program that they take to a school that is somewhere on the South Side. And then we've got organizations and communities there's the Green Line Garfield Park Art Center that just opened up, that's doing beautiful work, and they're doing incredible work. They're having poetry and dance performances and all kinds of art happening in these neighborhoods. And I would love to see funding go to that. So I think that right now is germinal, because we know that people are in a position right now where they want to do the right thing. It isn't about virtue signaling anymore and just not being identified racist. We know that it's wrong because we see the videos and it's like enough already. So we have to have art that reflects that, of what we are. Our purpose as artists is to expand people's concept of what humanity is, of what we deem human. We have that power. And where it was used before as a platform to reinforce ideas about subjugating a class of human beings, now we can use it as a way to expand people's sense of what they deem human. And that is really exciting. And people were already doing it. Some playwrights are already doing it. I mentioned Stephen Andres, and Philip Dawkins' play Charm, about an elder Black trans woman that teaches etiquette to a bunch of trans kids. But what she's really teaching them is how to love themselves, and then to carry that love with them throughout the world and be a beacon of light and hope to people who I mentioned are morally and spiritually bankrupt.
So what I like about your story, if you'll share a little bit with everybody watching, is that you were talking to me earlier about how you knew what you wanted, right? And then you went after it. Can you talk about your personal experience about going after Stephen and all these people you work with? Like, you're just like relentless, and then it happens.
It was really cool. I'll try and get this out really, really fast.
Okay.
But it's a long journey. It started in 2005 when I auditioned for Our Lady of 121st Street at Steppenwolf. That was the first of 5 roles I was on hold for at Steppenwolf. And even after I went to school at Steppenwolf, it didn't happen.
You did get it.
But I did do Jesus Hop the A Train in 2008, and then won the Jeff for in 2009. And like that was that experience where I was like, oh my God, this is real. These people are real. He's talking about real people. And so both Our Lady and that, and then in Arabia I read, and Steep did it, and other people were doing. They did Last Days of Judas Iscariot, and or The Gift. Somebody did it. I forget who, but his work was all over the place. And he had come to see them at Steep or The Gift, and so I had invited him to see Jesus Hop the A Train, but he didn't get to. And then in 2012, I auditioned for Motherfucker with the Hat at Steppenwolf again, and Cousin Julio, and like knew that I had that, and was put on hold for it, and then didn't get it. So I was like, and then I had graduated from school at Steppenwolf, and I was like, fine, I can't even work at the theater I'm associated with. So I left, and I was like, I'll go. If it takes a Hollywood name, then I'm going to Hollywood, baby. So I went to Hollywood, found a theater that was doing Motherfucker with a Hat, and crashed the audition, booked the role, and did it, and then figured out that Stephen's work was so imperative for my identity, not only as an artist, but as a human being, because in his work is this story of redemption, and this story of humanity and human dignity that he offers to this group of people that is otherwise discounted and disenfranchised from society. And I was like, well, that's my playwright, that's my Shakespeare. And his poetry is gorgeous. So he's doing all of these things for me. And so I wrote my agents and told them, like, this is my mission in life. I know I want to be the national interpreter of Stephen's work. I want to continue doing his plays all over the country. I want to go and get away from the 5th and 4th production, get closer to the 3rd, and then eventually the 2nd. And then eventually, I want to star in a show that he writes for me with the lab in New York. Like he did with Steve McAnderson.
They wrote their agent. They were like, I need this.
Yeah. So I told my agents that, and I said, this is what I'm doing. You have to get on board. This is my vision for my career. I was like, I don't know if you get this, but this happened to me, and so I know this is what I want and this is what I'm working for. And then Between Riverside and Crazy came up, and then I found out the second show was going to be in San Francisco, and I hustled and I pitched and I did everything and set up all these coincidences, made it to their closing night of a little night music, broke into their after party. Don't do that. I crashed it. I didn't break in. I was there at the theater. I saw the show. And I jumped in, and Mark Rucker, who's now passed, gave this beautiful speech, and I went up to him and I was like, that was beautiful. Oh my God, thank you for not shying away from the sex. This is all about people who want to do it. And he was like, oh my God, that's great. Who are you? And I was like, I'm Esteban, and I would be perfect to play Oswald in Between Riverside and Crazy because of this, 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 and this. And he's like, oh my God, you would. And he walked me over there to the casting director and was like, here, this is Esteban, and they'd be great to play, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, oh my God, you would, but the role's already been cast. And I was like, ah! So my agent at the time should have known that. They didn't, and so they're not my agent anymore. But it led me, you know, then I ended up working at Steppenwolf, which was great. And then I did a show at 16th Street in Chicago, in Berwyn, and that brought me back to Chicago from LA. And Ann Filmer was like, you should apply for this grant. And I did, and I wrote in the grant that I wanted to study at the Atlantic School, their summer school. It was like school at Steppenwolf. But most of the money from the grant would go to tuition and to rent in New York City. That's most of it. And because Steven had taught there 5 years ago, and maybe that would give me the chance to meet him. Wow. So when I won the grant in January 2018, I had to go and meet the other fellows and then receive it and blah, blah, blah. But I was like, hey, do y'all know Steven? And they were like, yeah, we publish his work. And I was like, would you introduce me? And they're like, yes, Esteban, that's what this grant is for. So then they set up an email introduction. Steven and I met. I told him what his work meant to me. And then boom, we started collaborating that summer. And then, you know, we did this play together, which was crazy because I said things in that play as that character that I told him about me personally. And I never imagined that I would be saying my truth to all of these strangers in my off-Broadway debut.
Esteban, you talk about manifesting your vision. Okay, you guys, I hope you guys are hearing how much they manifest their own vision. And I know this has been an inspiring talk for everybody listening, including myself. When your will and your passion is strong enough and you really want what you want, go get it. Go get it. Go get it.
Yeah.
Work hard. Go get it. Don't be afraid of failure. All this stuff is great. You guys, I can't believe that this is my 11th actual host. I did one privately for the school and 10 of these right now. I'm going to be leaving you in the exquisite hands of Esteban, at least for the next few talks. I'm not sure what the future is, but I know that they have some awesome, awesome things lined up for you. Who are you going to be with on the 13th next week, Esteban? Can you tell everyone?
Well, I'm really excited because we're going to be each week featuring a different arts organization in the Black community. And I'll be interviewing a different artist from each of these organizations. And my first guest is going to be Kevin Aiega Jeff next Monday at 6 p.m. And Kevin not only is like my father in dance, but he was the artistic director of Deeply Rooted Productions here in Chicago for all up until recently, actually. And he has such a beautiful vision that nurtured me as an artist. And he's such a great reminder for everyone how to bring the spiritual element, that spiritual part of our beings, into everything we do, and not just the creation of art, but into your boardrooms and into every part of how you function and engage with your community.
Awesome. So that's the 13th. That's next Monday at 6. Make sure you guys hop on board for that. And then on the 20th, tell us who you're interviewing.
That's a surprise!
It's a surprise. We're not going to tell you yet, but it's going to be somebody really, really good. Okay, you guys? I also wanted to remind you that Reginald Edmond, who was our guest a few weeks ago at one of the guests during our last Jammy Jam of episode 9, I just bought my ticket for his production of Rideshare. Reginald was the founder of Black Lives, Black Words, and so please go buy your ticket on the website. It starts July 8th through the 12th, check out and support that wonderful organization, and his writing is very profound. So please check that out. Do you have a favorite quote or anything you want to say to leave us with, Esteban?
Yes, I would like to tell everyone that whatever you're doing right now, if it feels uncomfortable, you're starting to create, you're like, okay, great, I've taken this challenge that SD gave me and I'm gonna start creating, but it feels a little awkward. It feels a little, I don't know, it feels a little gay. And if you find yourself saying that, if it feels gay, make it gayer.
All right, awesome. And with that, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in. That is a wrap.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.